It's fascinating to see how living in the World Wide Web speeds everything up. From work and groceries to political views. It took over 100 years for feminism to grow from the fight for truly equal rights to its current degenerated state. With Redpill, it only took 10.
I've never seen a gathering like this out of concern for the general state of affairs for men and boys in this culture.
What's your body count? Peace out.
This is Sparta!
See ya.
Of course, that's not to say men haven't made efforts to go against feminism movement beforehand. With the League for Men's Rights being founded back in 1926. But here's the thing, men are a lot less sociable than women, so unlike with feminism, initial changes in men's rights activism took a lot longer, with its 20th century evolution being close to none in comparison to the opponent. But thanks to the internet, that barrier was no longer a factor, leading to a sudden boom of progress. So I aim to analyze the sudden evolutionary explosion of manosphere. Why? Well, what if I told you that even though these two rival forces hold completely opposite core ideas, the outcome of those values is identical, and their development shares the same steps? This is the third way. The initial growth in popularity of the MRA began in the early 2010s and gave birth to a viral conflict between feminists and men's rights activists, spanning over hundreds of videos that reached millions of views, with men often facing leftist activists in the fight for their rights, the most notorious being the fire alarm incident at the MRA meeting back in 2013, where the now legendary Red One stopped a peaceful debate by protesting against it and ultimately committing a misdemeanor act.
Suddenly, I was confronted with the direct possibility of being drafted for combat.
This is a list of the things that we're working towards. Now, if you would shut the fuck up for the 50th billionth time, we agree on.
With that in mind, many were infuriated, since New Age feminists actively negated men's right to do what their movement did half a century prior. To emphasize, a quote about second wave feminism from Wikipedia states, "Second wave feminism broadened the debate to include a wider range of issues, like sexuality, family, domesticity, reproductive rights, de facto inequalities, and official legal inequalities."
Here, for example, are just a few areas of difficulty. Hire purchase usually requires a male guarantor. A married woman's income is taxed as part of her husband's. Her sickness benefit is 30 shillings less than his.
An MRA article on the subject states, common topics discussed within the men's rights movement include family law, reproduction, suicides, domestic violence against men, circumcision, education, conscription, social safety nets, and health policies.
We generally know that fathers don't get as good a deal in family court, and we don't really complain about it until it happens to us. And even then, a lot of men don't.
At their respective stage, both ideas were politically transparent and honest in their nature, focusing on legal measures towards equality, and both receiving a similar backlash. But as with any movement that starts with good intentions, so did the Redpill, and feminism had to move on to something new. Legal measures stay relevant only for so long. So in the aftermath, what remains? Emotions. The third wave feminism is traced to the emerge of Riot Girl, feminist punk subculture in Olympia, Washington in the early 1990s, with its main focus respectfully orbiting around social issues of rape, domestic abuse, sexuality, racism, patriarchy, classism, anarchism, but most importantly, for the first time, female empowerment.
Imagine what it must have done for the people, for the girls who were in their teens, who suddenly came to believe that the drama of punk was their drama. In fact, the drama of life was their drama, and they will not be denied.
The empowerment focused largely on the disconnection between self-worth and the relationships with the male population, often bringing focus to what type of negativity that relation can bring. All of that in an artistic and emotional fashion. On the timeline, this parallels us with the Sigma male internet subculture of the early 2020s. a subculture that represents the idea of building self-worth by propagating men capable of living purely for their own interest, and cultivating stoicism when faced with negative behavior from women, essentially picturing a struggle of everyday men and his breakout from the system. Connecting these two seems far-fetched, until you analyze their origins and motives. Both movements saw themselves as the underdogs, going against the system, strongly motivated by the feeling of unfair treatment and underrepresentation in society. They were a subcultural extension of the previous wave and carried an artistic and emotional value. Clearly, each party suffered somehow and sought a way to let out or picture their pent-up emotions. You see, this is not a fight of legal measures anymore. It's an embodiment of social tensions made by buildup of anger caused by feeling of injustice, a preludium to the next cultural explosion. All you need now is a charismatic leader.
And those leaders came, as vicious as they could, hitting an absolute goldmine with Gen Z, low self-esteem and depression.
Anyway, here's the mentioned conclusion. The New Age Redpill, in its nature, is based on biology, denying cultural evolution, with its main points being gender power dynamic, explanation of male promiscuity as a natural occurrence, seeing it as an outcome of biology, negating the importance of men's emotional life, focusing on becoming the alpha of the group, unreliance on others to achieve one's goals, mistrust towards the other sex, and seeing the other sex as incapable. On the contrary, fourth wave feminism is focused on culture, denying the biological evolution, with its main points being gender power dynamic, explanation of female promiscuity as a libertarian value, seeing it as an outcome of oppression, overpropagating the importance of women's emotional life, focusing on becoming the alpha of the group, expectations towards others to achieve one's goals, mistrust towards the other sex, seeing the other sex as incapable. Even though these two contradict each other on the base level, both buy your attention with the same outcomes. It's also gruesomely funny how both ideologies create each other's purpose. Imagine this simplified hypothetical story. The so-called red pill alpha lures a woman into bed with the premise of having a high-value guy. Then he dumps her because he's emotionally disconnected. Now this woman, after many of similar partners, feels ashamed and looks for a way to let those emotions go. So she becomes liberated, and on her way hurts a young man that's looking for love. Now that young man is in pain and disconnects from women, and by that he becomes the alpha. There are no winners here, only suffering. So what happens to an all-about-me society? Infidelity rates among women are on the rise, having increased by 40% in the last 20 years. Marriage rates between the years 1990 to 2021 have dropped by 428%. 1/3 of women, that is 36.7%, now report having been diagnosed with depression compared to 20.4% of men, with women's rate rising to nearly twice that of men since 2017. With men, suicide became the primary cause of death, excluding accidents, with teenage boys reaching a rate of 19.4% and men between ages of 20 to 44 reaching 16.1%. With the idea of red pill gaining power and continuously spreading polarization of the society, one might conclude that it will only get worse as time passes, with both forces becoming even more dominant in our everyday lives. With all this division, humanity races to the finish line of self-termination. With just 19 years left before the population officially starts. Men's promiscuity is an achievement, says Redpill. Women can have sex with hundreds if they so desire, says a feminist. Focus on yourself, your own growth only, they scream together, because career and money will make you happy. And always remember, you are meant to be in control. And so the world world slowly dies. People, as they were told, disconnect from each other. Words like family, unity, care, compassion, and love are being forgotten increasingly with each passing day. We were always meant to be together, yet we are pulled away from each other for profits and fame. How can people not see insanity of this world? Will people someday understand that happiness doesn't come from taking, but from sharing? Nonetheless, the drastic paradox to it all is, balance and equality will never be achieved if the power moves to one group at the expense of the other, because exclusivity will never lead to equality.